Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and its effect on employment, 35% of Americans say they are now planning to retire later. The same study finds that more than 60% of retirees wish they had done a better job of planning for the financial aspects of retirement. Joining us now is Josh Royeton of Edward Jones here in St. Joseph. Josh, ideally by planning ahead, we can give ourselves that flexibility to respond to whatever changes come our way. But what are some of these moves that we can make?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. So the first big one is just take full advantage of your retirement accounts while you're still working. Try to put as much into your 401k or other employer-sponsored retirement plans, or do something on your own if you don't have an employer-sponsored plan, and make sure you increase your contributions as your salary goes up. And also, when you're doing that, when taking advantage of these kind of plans, make sure you're using growth-oriented investments. That way, you're going to get to the finish line and have enough growth to maintain the kind of retirement that you want.
And how do you know if you are being too risky or too, what would the word be, conservative maybe with your investments? How do you know if you're doing a good job with that?
That's a tough one, and just because it really is very personal. Some people have a really high capacity for risk, and other people have very low capacity for risk. We have a great tool here at Edward Jones in our office. There's really good online tools that probably are out there that help people identify how much risk they really can withstand. Some people, a drop in the market like we had last year would have them running for the hills, and other people would say, "Oh, what a great time for me to buy a new investment while it's really cheap," which is really probably the better move to make. But yeah, that's just something that people have to kind of work through. And I always recommend start off a little more conservative until you get more comfortable, and then kind of increase your risk level as you go if you've never invested before.
Okay, so the next question would be, how do we keep our debts low? Because that's the next check on the list that we need to do for retirement.
Absolutely. And we always say this one, especially because sometimes you might end up retiring sooner than you actually planned, whether voluntarily or not. So you really don't want to go into the later stages of life saddled with a heavy debt load. So while you're still working, try to follow a budget. And there's all kinds of great calculators and tools for finding out how to kind of track your budget on a monthly basis. And then you want to oversee your cash flow in a way that allows you to avoid incurring heavy debts.
And I guess lastly, it says review your financial strategy. That's one of your tips. With that, we always hear people say, definitely pay down your debt first. Whenever you listen to someone on a podcast or on a TV show, that seems to be what they're saying. Is that a good financial strategy as a first step?
I think it is, yeah, because if you have a really high interest bearing credit card, let's say, or any kind of high interest bearing loan, it's very unlikely you're able to consistently make the kind of money you need to in the stock market without taking on crazy amounts of risk. So you're better off paying that down and getting it to a more reasonable rate, and then starting to save and invest long term. But you also want to think about if we swing back to the 401k plans, look at the match. And if you're getting a match, well, you're effectively doubling your money right then and there also. So it's kind of try to do both at the same time if you can, at least while you're getting that match for your company.
Great advice. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.